Hey folks, Bush here. I am a therapist in the New York area, and dawned on me the other day that I spend a lot of time in my car reflecting on certain things that might have happened in a session or something that may have been talked about in the ICBM workshop. I thought maybe I would just share these things with you as I'm driving, as I'm thinking. I hope you can get something out of this, and let me know if you'd like to hear more. Well, one of the things I want to keep in the forefront are these are with the ICBM 10. And we talked about intentionally focused, and around stereotypes, and we have so many of them in our community, in our world. We almost take them for granted. They're part of the woodwork even within our community. So we want to be able to banish them, but there's a question about whether they can be banished in some way, because they keep popping up in around our lives, around our living, in our environment. And our environment impacts us quite a bit if we don't really think about how do we work in our environment? How do we perform in our environment? How does our environment affect us and how we move through the world? When a lot of our stereotypes start in books and in media, movies, things we create in some ways. There is a lot of that which we create. But I just saw a Netflix movie. I think it was out in 2024, and it was called something like Who Cloned Tyrone or something like that. And it, had all these stereotypical characters, which include the neighborhood. The neighborhood, our environment, is also somewhat stereotypical. So this movie takes place in a town. I don't want to give it away because I really enjoyed it, and I think everyone should see it. It's on Netflix. I think it was put out in 2023, 2024. I don't know. It's one of those small movies, but it was interesting in its breakdown of what we almost see as natural, as we see as normal, and how those stereotypical things can be used against us. So it uses those archetypes. Every black man in America, grows up dealing with these stereotypes and thoughts about who they are. We have them all. I don't have to, kind of go over them. You can probably visualize or understand what they all are. But these are not stereotypes or ways of seeing ourselves that we put on ourselves all the time per se, but they are other people's imagination. They're what other people think about who they think we are. And they're not real. But they do have some consequences if we don't really manage them, even for ourselves. the very first thing is for ourselves. And we can't pretend that they don't exist. So we should work at really trying to figure out for ourselves what kind of damage do they do, and what we want to tolerate, if at all. We can't always fight against everything. But what we also don't want to do is do the opposite. Go full swing the pendulum the other way, if you will. If the concept is that you're lazy, and then you now you have to work twice as hard just to prove that you're not lazy, well, then you've swung the pendulum in the opposite way, which means in some ways you're still affected by the stereotype, because you're still acting upon it, just countering it the other way. So what we want to do is just learn how to be ourselves, learn how to be in our own skin, learn how to be who we are, and not ignore what the narrative of someone else is, but maybe even create a different, more engaging, positive view of ourselves. Because then you're still being affected by the stereotype. If we say that, black men, for example, are, many black men are athletes. They're quite natural athletic. They're, and why shouldn't we be proud of that? But to say that black men are athletic, but not intellectual, that is one of these stereotypes that has been used around black men for a long time. So I think the real, now I'm not against athletes being intellectual. I'm not against that, but that the stereotype of being a black athlete, you're trying to fight that with being hyper intellectual, well, then you're still being affected in some ways by the stereotype, because you're swinging the other way. The pendulum swings the other way because of the stereotype that you're trying to fight against. So, the thought is to, just be yourself. You can be an athlete, you can be intellectual, if not, smart, and that's also a stereotype that we tend to rub against in our community, that smart people, men and women, males and females, tend to not be of us when they are indeed of us. When we talk about when Black History Month comes around, the one scientist everyone knows about is George Washington Carver. Now, yes, okay, it's fine, but what about all the other scientists? Lonnie Johnson comes to mind. Dr. Charles Drew comes to mind. Dr. E. Just comes to mind. One of the first black doctors who founded the first black hospital in the United States in Chicago, Dr. Williams, he comes to mind. He founded Providence Hospital in Chicago. So, these men are scientists. Well, of course, we have, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's a scientist. We have, I wish I had more of them at my fingertips. But there's a whole plethora of Mae Jameson. She's not only a physician, but she's an engineer. So we have wonderful people who are scientists. On my podcast, I just interviewed Calvin Gary, who he is now my personal trainer, but he was trained as an engineer. So you should, go to that and see that. But so these stereotypes of that we kind of accept and we perpetuate, we might need to stop participating with them, and we need not the best and the brightest. We need to bring people along who need help. We don't know if they're the best and the brightest. They weren't given a chance. And if we write people off just because they don't have a certain, they don't show it right away, well, some of that may be our own stereotypes around, well, you shouldn't be smart because, that's white people's territory to be smart. But, I've yet to see any Asian, South Asian, East Asian, Korean, I have yet to see any of them say those types of things about themselves. But we readily hold on to this stereotypical thought even now. If you're a smart black person, who do you think you are? I mean, I've myself have been, kind of jostled with this kind of thought. But we need smart people. We need intelligent people. We need people who want to be scientists. We need people who want to be pilots. I was on a plane the other day, and we have some black pilots who fly for the major airlines, but it strikes me in 2025 there should be more. I've seen, I go through the airport a lot and I see them, but they're few and far between. I see plenty of service people, and there's nothing against people being flight attendants and things like that. But where is the leadership in being a pilot or being an aeronautical engineer or something like that? Well, we have, do we have sort of a bias against people like that? And that is how we get rid of these stereotypes. They start from within. We have to, and that's why I use the word banish, because they should not exist. They should, and we should not participate in our own, in those types of things. We have to, in some ways, look at ourselves and say, well, what are we buying into that wasn't, sort of our idea, or where did that idea come from? Was it our own? Was it, was it of our own making? Sometimes these things are not. We just accept them without any proof of, what has, come before. So, back to this movie, They Clone Tyrone, is, is very, it questions all those things, which is kind of what I enjoyed about it. And it fit right into my thoughts around banishing stereotypes. It also, in some ways, fits within keeping noble connections, making noble connections. It's very much a hero's journey, which Kwame Scruggs was talking about on my first podcast. It's definitely a hero's journey where you make those noble connections. You meet those people in your life, and you have those bonds, and you band together to make something happen for your family, for your community. So that's part of that too. It hit a lot of notes for me within the ICBM 10, but the one that really stuck with me was the banishing stereotypes.